Most people have considered management at some point in their career, but they don't know how or the skills they need to get there. In today's video, I'm very excited and honored to interview Akshay, who is an excellent engineer who recently transitioned from code to management. Like many talented engineers in the US who hail from India, Akshay is also of Indian descent. Currently, he serves as an engineering manager at Remitly. Prior to his current role, Akshay amassed a wealth of experience working at renowned companies like Grab, Microsoft, and Expedia. But here's the twist. The path to management isn't always smooth sailing. In today's video, I'm very excited because we get to explore the hidden secrets, the myths, the raw realities of being a software engineering manager. And whether you're a budding leader, a software engineer, or a manager who's looking to learn something new, I promise today's video, there's a little bit for everyone. Today, we're going to talk about the skills that you need, the experiences, the hurdles, the realities of being a software engineering manager. This interview promises to challenge your perspective and give you insights that you've never seen anywhere else. Okay, let's dig in. All right. So the first question, right, is basically recently transitioned from software engineer to management. Talk through what was your motivation there? Has this always been something that you wanted to do?
Yeah. Yes, this is something that I've always wanted to do. I feel like uh, it comes more naturally to me. I don't have to put in more energy into it, I feel. But that was just a bet that I thought it's true. But I wanted to test things out. So I did a couple of courses offline just to make sure that is it something that I really enjoy. So there are a few courses that I would highly recommend just to get a flavor of what it looks like. And I think having a conversation within your org is also something which is very, very important. Uh, because it could be, right, that you decide to transition into an EM role, but even though you transition into an EM role, I feel IC's work and EM's work is very, very different. And you want to set the right expectation that even though you want to move to an EM role, do you want to transition slowly into it, right? Where you want to understand, like, you want to have a footing into IC for a bit and slowly transition. So I think that's what I did. I went into a lead position for a couple of years where I was responsible for the project and the tech side of it, but also at the same point, I was partially responsible for how well my team is growing, how well my team thinks about the company, or how's the morale of the team. Even though I was not like responsible for the team, but I was pseudo responsible. So that's like a lead position that I took for like 2 years. And that's when I realized, okay, I'm good at this. I like this. And that's when I decided to transition to an EM position.
Got it. So for your career, you mentioned like you were a lead for 2 years, right? And then do you only, so were you trying management at the existing company before you jumped ship? Or you did the transition when you look for a new job as well?
Yeah, so it's been interesting for me. So I was a lead at my previous company, and when I joined this company, I joined as a senior engineer come lead. And within the first month, an opportunity opened up, and I just happened to ask, "Hey, is that fine?" Because I've always been interested, and I could be tested on it for a couple of months and see how that goes. And my org was supportive of that. So I quickly moved into an EM role within like I think 1.5 months of me being in the company. So it was challenging for sure, but it was exciting because I've always wanted to do that.
Okay. And what was the size of the team that you were responsible for?
Yeah, so it was 4 engineers, excluding me. Uh, and the interesting thing was that my team was more full stack. There are a lot of customer facing features that we've been working on. And most of the engineers predate me in the company, and they have a lot of domain and historical knowledge about that, which I don't have. Having said that, and in the last 8 to 9 years, I've not worked on UI or app related stuff. So I think that was also a challenge for me where I had to grow in. Uh, so having said that, 4 engineers, and at this point we are already up to 6, and I'm still hiring at this point.
Got it. Nice. And so you mentioned that was that the team that you joined and then they had an opportunity for you to be a manager and then that was the team that you joined and then you ended up being the manager for?
Yes. So actually, when I joined, right, like my manager was leading a team of like 16 people, and I think he was already stretched too thin. So it happened to be that he already had an idea and he was planning to look out for an EM, and I kind of fit well into that position that he was looking for. So a few of the people reporting into him started to report into me, and yeah, so that was the team I joined, and now I'm leading that team.
Got it. Can you talk little bit like what does the team do?
So the team that I work for, so firstly I work for Remitly.
So you mentioned you work at Remitly.
Yes,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
work for a company called Remitly. It's a fintech company. We are responsible for sending money across borders. We started like 12 years ago, and the company was responsible, or the motto was to make immigrants' life easier. Where they were like, they know the big portion of people who have migrated to different countries and they still want to send money to their home country. So that's what Remitly does. Within that, I work for an organization called CST, which is Customer Success. So think of it at any point in a customer journey when a customer needs help, they come to us. It could be while the transaction is going on, or they want to start a transaction, or they don't understand any of the help articles that exist, or the app says that hey, the money's transferred, but their mother goes to the bank and they don't find the money. So it's really sensitive to the customer because it could be that they're sending $50 for a hospital bill, right? So it is really time sensitive. Most of the things that my org does. Within CST, which is my org, I work for a team called as self-serve experience team. We live at the top of the funnel where we are trying to automate most of the things that we can so that the customer doesn't have to wait long and get to an agent. So think of like if they want to cancel a transaction, or if they want to edit a transaction, or if they want to know the status of the transaction, or they want some help, or they just want to read an article about how do we transfer money, or they want an article about how they can send money, right? So all of those kind of things is something that my team does.
Okay. So self-serve experience. Okay, and that's your team or the entire org that you sit within?
That's my team.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
So the bigger org is customer success. So okay. So the bigger org is actually, I can say, split into three different parts. One is my team. The second is a platform which takes care of entire call management workflow, or a chat management workflow, which includes routing, that which call should go to which agent, which email should go to which agent. So that's more of a platform layer. And the third team that is responsible for agent experiences. We want to make sure that when a chat or a call or an email comes to an agent, they have all the context and they know exactly what to do so that they can help the customer. So this is how like the org is split into three different parts. My team is responsible for customer facing experiences.
Okay, got it. Um, and kind of like back to sort of like managing this team, right? You came into and this is like a full stack team, right? Um, Maybe talk a bit about like what was the biggest challenge for you here?
Yeah, so given I had worked as an IC most of the times, um, I think it's very easy to judge how you're doing, right? It's very objective, whether you've delivered a project or you've not delivered. You have succeeded at a POC or you're not succeeded. Have you taken care of a P0 event or you've not taken care of, right? I come from that mentality. But I think as an EM, your success or your failure is more subjective. And you being okay with that is very important, right? It could be that, okay, you've done a great job, you delivered a project, and it helped like the company make millions of dollars. But what if your team is not happy, right? Or what if there's one engineer within a team who does not align with what you're doing? So I would say you never get a 100% success, and that was my biggest challenge. I was not okay with that objectivity, subjectivity compared to objectivity, but that's a process I'm getting through, and I'm learning more about that.
Got it. So how's that? You know, I agree. It's definitely a big learning process of switching from something that's more binary, yes or no, shipped or not shipped, to something that's a little bit more abstract, which is ensuring the success of the team,
Yeah.
right? And there are a lot of different ways that you can measure that. So I'm curious, from your perspective, how do you know whether or not you're being successful? Um, what are some guardrails or metrics or processes that you put in place to ensure that you and your team are making the right progress? You guys are getting better.
Yeah, so over the last couple of months, right, I've been able to break down my responsibility and I rate myself on these three things, right? The first one is the bread and butter, right? Which is, are you delivering for business or not, right? Is your team delivering what's expected out of your team? Is your team's scope growing? Is your team's quality of work improving or at least staying where it was, right? That's the first guardrail. The second guardrail that I think is your team's morale, which is your team excited to solve the problems that you are excited to solve or you're asking them to solve? That's a very important thing, I think, is because if the team doesn't believe in the work that they're doing, they will never be able to give in 100%. And if they're not giving it 100%, the product is never going to be 100%. So that's the second guardrail for me. And the third guardrail, which I have started to work on very diligently, is how can I grow my team? And I look at any engineer working in my team, I look at his career or her career, not just as the time that they are working for Remitly, but in long term, the things that they're going to learn here, how is it going to help them? So I have a lot of growth documents for them. I'm trying to imbibe a culture where they start thinking about their growth, they own their growth, and they actually look at the things that they should be learning and they're able to ask that. At the same point, I should be able to have that visibility and I should be able to provide them those opportunities. So just the growth of engineers is the third guardrail that I'm looking at right now.
Okay. So delivery, like team
Success
delivery,
of project,
Okay.
Team morale,
team morale. Okay.
and the third is the growth of the team.
Growth of the team. Okay. Now, I feel like within each one of them, right, there are a lot of things that you can kind of talk about. I think the first one probably is the project success. That's a little bit probably easier to kind of like measure as well. But how do you measure like things like morale, like team morale, and how do you measure things like growth?
Yeah. Right. So actually, let's zoom into all of them, right? Yes, project success is objective, but I would say I have made mistakes there within the first quarter itself, right? Where I've not. So as an IC, you usually look like 3 months in the future. You might look at 6 months in the future, and I think as an EM, that's not the right thing to do. Success of a project in one quarter could just be you doing the platform work, or it could be just you setting the bases up, right? It might not bring impact to the business right away, but you need to sell that idea and you need to get people aligned. It could be your leadership, it could be your product, it could be any other stakeholders. So I think that is a learning that I have. In the first couple of months, I was like, okay, I'm going to go for impact and I'm going to see what I'm going to get like business numbers out of, right? And 6 months into that, I realized that's not the best thing. I should have waited for 6 months, aligned the leadership that, hey, we should do this baseline work first and then look for the J curve growth. So those are the few learnings that I got in the process. Uh, okay, let's talk about the growth document, right? So I think at this point, I have structured it into 3 different documents that I'm trying to grow my engineers by. One is I want to make sure that they are owning their growth and they're doing some introspection and retrospection about how well they have done something, how well they could do it, and what's the gap that they have. A couple of things that we've been using on that is the career document itself within our company saying that, hey, you are at this level, you're expected to do this. If you want to go to the next level, these are the things that you should be doing. It's not necessary that they need to be doing all of those things, but that gives them the idea how they can grow at a few things. I make sure that that document is owned by them and not by me, because I don't want to speak for them. I want to make sure they own that and they, because they cannot grow till the time they want to grow, and I want to make sure they realize that they want to grow.
So maybe for people who's not very familiar, right? Like what does it mean by them owning the document versus you? Like what's the difference here?
Correct. So, okay, let's talk about. I think most of the companies or a lot of companies have that. Is you're gonna have a career document in which you're saying, hey, if you're at level X, these are the things expected out of you. If you're at level Y, these are the things expected out of you. Now, when I own a employee's document, growth document, what that means is I'm gonna be telling that person that, hey, I feel you're good at this. You should be doing this because this document is telling you this. Whereas they owning it, I want them to look at the projects that they've worked on, what skills have they demonstrated, and what additional skills they need to grow in so that they can deliver better. And I want them to do that introspection, and it shouldn't come from me.
Got it. Okay. So this is the difference between you telling them of what here are the things that you need to grow in, and then them coming to you and say, here are the areas I think I'm doing well, and here are the things where I want to grow in to get to the next level.
Exactly.
Okay.
But having said that, right, like there are techniques for you to probe them to think more, right?
Sure.
So you ask open-ended questions to them, right? You give them the space, or you just probe them and make sure that they start thinking about those things rather than you solving the problem for them.
Got it. Okay. Makes sense. So if they own the career doc then, right? Like what is the role that you play in this conversation with them?
Yeah, so the first role that I play in that conversation is about probing, right? About asking, right? Hey, what better we could have done? Or do you think we are at a better place as a team than what we were earlier? Or hey, last time that the doc review we had done, you said that you want to improve in, let's say, communication. What are your thoughts? Right? First thing is you need to probe them because they might not know what they don't know. Right? So that is the first role. And second thing that I help them do, structure their thoughts and create a plan around it. You cannot get to everything within a quarter, right? You need to make sure that you give them like a structured way. At the same point, you make sure that you open the opportunities for them so that they can grow in those places. So let's say through the doc, you realize that they need to grow in system design, right? Or they need to do better system design, or they need to do more infra related work. Okay, you understood that, but as a manager, it's your responsibility so that you can open those doors for them, get them those kind of projects, and make sure that they can be tested on that. Because if you don't provide them, there's no way they can be tested on it.
Got it. So it sounds like, right, the kind of role of the manager here is helping them identify areas that they might have not known about themselves. And then the second part is finding opportunities for them.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So on that part, uh, do you think that software engineers should, kind of come up with their ideas for themselves, or it should be like manager given? Right. Because I think there's a lot of discussion around this point too. Of as the higher that you grow as a more senior engineer, right, you're responsible for finding your own scope.
Yeah, and
What's your thought on this?
yeah, I think it depends a lot about the way different companies have